And welcome back, folks. So, this is another Waves Open session, and this is a very, very special one for me personally, as well as I guess for you guys as well. Should be. This is not only one of my best friends, but also probably one of the most famous mix engineers and producers on planet Earth. And we are very, very lucky to have him here today. So, everybody, let's get ready for another Waves Open Sessions. Roll it! And as promised, welcome back, Mr. Kramer. I missed you.
I missed you too, man. Did your voice get a bit high?
So this week I have a standing desk, so I can kind of like run around. But it actually makes running a live stream a lot easier than when you're sitting down. So I'm really looking forward to this, and we'll see how my feet and my back feel in an hour.
All right. I might join you.
All right, so first up, this is obviously a masterclass focusing on what you've been practicing and preaching for years and years and years, and basically on a genre of music that, with all due respect, you pretty much created. Can you please first give us a bit of a preview, and Jason, you too, if you're back there, a bit of a preview. Let's press play on the session for about 30 seconds so we can hear what we're playing with. Jason, let's keep it going until the vocals.
Right.
That's beautiful. Teeny with a bit of latency there, but welcome to the internet, folks. Okay, Eddie, where do you want to start? So when you're working with a band like this, and as I said before, we mentioned this band is Electric Zoo, very, very talented and inspired by a lot of Eddie's own work. Where do you start with this kind of session if you're mixing or producing it? Do you start at drums, vocals? What do you look for as a place to begin with coloring it with your knife and brush?
Knife, yeah, with me knife and brush, with me palette, yes, with me palette knife. It's for me, I always go right to the heart and soul of the rhythm section. That's the drums. I'm always gravitating towards them. I wish I'd been a drummer. I wish I'd been a guitar player, but I can't. I can play the piano, but the bass drum and the snare and how that relates to where the bass is locking in, and it all sort of ties together. But I always start with the kick or the foot or the bass drum, whatever part of the low end you want to call it. Yes.
Okay, so let's go through. And obviously, as I've already said, we have Eddie's assistant and engineer on with us. He's up there in the cloud. We can probably hear him occasionally, but he's doing this Pro Tools session with us. You're running the show, Eddie. Let's go through and take us through what you want to do.
Yeah, let's check out the kick. It's a kick in mic, but there's all kinds of processing that we've been experimenting with and messing with. Let's have a look at the EQ, solo the bass drum, or excuse me, the kick. I've never really understood why people call it a kick. You don't kick a bass drum. I mean, it's not, I mean, if you kicked it with your foot, you put your foot through it. But all right, that's an Americanization, I guess, and you got to live with it. Let's hear it. Yeah, you can hear the lovely leakage with that, can't you? So have a look at the graphic EQ is an API 560. You can see how much scooping out we did at 500. That's a big part of it, is to remove some of that. And then the mid-range boost is the 3K, the 4K. And then there's other things that we did to it as well. If you go to the next item, and there it is. Check that out. You can see, because I've got my glasses on and the screen's kind of small, it's a little difficult for me to see all the numbers there. And then let's just play that and let's just see what those various items are doing. In bypass, thank you. And can we bypass the EQ too? Yeah, bypass the EQ. Yeah, you can hear immediately. It's kind of, yeah, it's all right. But now you bang those two back in, please, Jason. Switch them back in. A little bit of latency. Oh, play it again, please. So we got the sound back. It's got some of that beef, but we haven't finished yet. There's a lot more to go. Let's go to the next layer, which is the excite, the kick excite. And we've got a whole bunch of stuff going on here. Check this out.
You really do, don't you?
Yes, sir. One of the things I particularly like is obviously the Kramer Pi recreation. This is I want to go back many, many years. And there was a reason for making these three items with Waves. By the way, I still think Waves did the most brilliant job on these plugins. What I was trying to create was the three key elements of the sound that I got at Olympic for Hendrix, the Stones, and many, many artists. And one of them was the tape machine, was the Kramer tape. The other was the Pi limiter, or PIE. We can't really use the original name, but it's the PIE, which is a brilliant limiter. And that's pretty much all we had. But that thing just kicks butt. And then there's the HLS, which is the Helios equalizer, which we'll come to in a minute. And those make up that Olympic sound. But so we're using elements of it here. You can see we've got SSL, we've got API, we've got the Pi, and these are all tone colors. So bang that in there, Jason, and see what we got. Hit me. Mm-hmm. Oh, you went into bypass on the equalizer. All right, throw it all in. Aha. See what that Pi compressor is doing?
It certainly gives it some bite, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It puts it in your face. And this is the whole point of having all these multiple colors and devices that I can use. You know, you use the tone palette thing going. I mean, Hendrix used to talk to me in colors. Hey man, can you give me some of that like purple sound? And I know he knew exactly what he was talking about. So this is me trying to paint colors into each individual part of the drums. Now, what's the next one? Then we got a kick bus. Oh, I love to kick the bus. I love to kick the bus. Let's have a look at the kick bus, please. Can you show us the kick bus?
There's nothing here on the kick bus, Eddie.
All right. I thought we had something. something. Oh, maybe is this our secret sauce?
Yeah.
We have secret sauce, but we'll throw that in there, put that all three together.
This is the kick drum sound. Right?
Hit it. It's cool because you're still getting the leakage of the snare, and you're still getting some of the leakage from the drums. It's not a dead drum. It's a live drum. All right, let's put the snare in. You can mute the bass drum. And the snare top. Let's have a listen. So on the EQ on the top snare, as you can see, using the V4, which is kind of like a creation of various different equalizers. I think it's got some Neve in there. It's got some other stuff in there, but essentially it's a Neve 1081 based unit. As you can see, the mid-range 3.3K, 6.8K, a little bump at 270 to give it some depth. Rolling off at 56 and then rolling off at 27. And that gives it that nice clunk. And then at the SSL, yeah, just play it for a sec. We got a gate on there. And the reason for that is because there was a lot of hi-hat and stuff leaking into the snare. I wanted that boink because there's so much coming from the overheads that fills that in. Plus, we got that nice slappy reverb. Very cool.
Eddie, we've got a question here from Richard online. Hi, Richard. He says, "Hi, Eddie. Can you elaborate on what the Kick Excite is on this?" You've got a track called Kick Excite.
Yeah. Well, it's
exciting.
Well, it's very exciting. Yeah, it's sort of we have to give it a name. It's just our name for it. It's fairly straightforward, API equalizer, and
I got a follow-up question to that from Gabby, who says, "Are the two kick tracks the same, or are they two different mic takes?"
No, it is one. The interesting thing is it's just one microphone inside the bass drum. I believe there was an extra mic. I didn't actually record this, by the way, so this is what we determined. There's a mic outside the drum, and that is in combination. We're using that in combination with the mic inside the drum, and it's gated, and it just works with the one inside. So you get the live room opening up.
While we're still on drums, Sancho is asking, "Hi, Eddie. What techniques do you have for separating kick and bass that you used before modern plugins came along? And have modern plugins changed how you go about this?"
The interesting thing about separating the bass from the drums was just using your ears to determine, okay, well, what's the bass drum doing? Is it in the same range? Is it playing a figure that's going to be in sync with the bass? Okay, well, if it is, then we need to define how that when we get to the bass, I'll show you the EQ that I use. I love an MEQ5 on the bass, which is a Pultic mid-range equalizer, which I believe we do have. And that, to me, gives that lovely punch at the 1K region, 1.5, and then 200 cycles to give it that low mid. That's EQP1A. We need an MEQ, but anyway, and there's also things on the bottom end that we can do with an EQP1A, but the limiter as well as an LA2A on the DI. So that what it does to the bass, it tightens it up and keeps it in its perspective. And then when you open up the bass drum, which has got that hard edge, you've got a round sounding bass, but a hard edge sounding foot with a lot of front attack at the mid, 2K all the way up to 5K on the bass drum, scooping out 500 or 300 depending on the sound of the bass drum. So that was the way we did it in the past, and we're still doing it today.
I have another question here from Mike. The questions are coming thick and fast now, Mr. Krames. Mike says, "Hi there." That's enthusiastic. Hi there, Mike. I would like to know what mixing techniques remain for you from the late 50s and early 60s that you would never abandon.
Well, the 50s, I was not actually recording yet.
But you were learning.
I was trying to learn. No, I started in 62, but yes, that's a good question. What's left? I'm not sure how to answer that question. All I can say is that when you learn how to record mono in the early 60s, all the way through 66, just before I went to Olympic, which was 4-track, we were recording mono and 2-track, 3-track at the very most. So you had to get the sounds were done in mono, get a drum sound, put it on 1 track, bang. Your balance had to be good so that when it carried through on a 2-track, 3-track, 4-track, whatever, it would still sound good in the final analysis. So it was that initial balance, making it sound great in mono first, is the first lesson of the day.
I think that's one of the things I love about this specific session as well. It's like when you first start listening to it, it sounds very mono, but then the vocals just spread it out. It's very, very so moving on. I'm going to get through a few questions for 2 reasons. Number one, because people love you. And number 2, it is a great way to remind people that we are live. Lucas says, in 1968, you recorded Jimi Hendrix's performance at the Miami Pop Festival. Have you also recorded other bands on the bill, especially bands maybe like Blue Cheer's show? What was the main challenge of recording an open-air live act in 1968?
Lack of equipment, very primitive gear. The Miami Pop Festival was done at Gulfstream Park, which, Michael, you might be familiar with. And I have a funny story because I do remember we were recording the bands. They were on 2 flatbed trucks that were sitting. Gulfstream Park, by the way, is a racetrack, and you can imagine the fans all coming up to where the 2 flatbeds were put right on the straightaway, and there was no protection from the elements. There was rain or sunshine, whatever. It was bleeding hot. And the bands, one band would play on this flatbed, and then that band would finish, and then the next flatbed would be open up. So Hendrix would be here, or Buddy Guy, Chuck Berry was on this one, and so on and so on. So I recorded the whole bloody lot that day. I do remember, but it was such a weird sort of place because in the middle of this thing, there's a big pond. And so the MC gets up to the mic and says, "All right, kids, don't go in the pool. There's sharks in there." Of course, that was total bullshit. But the kids still wanted to go and swim well, they were alligators or some kind of thing in there. I don't know, but it was pretty freaking weird. There was a lot of drugs.
Probably gators. There are a lot of those in Florida. Okay, so the next question is actually from a relative of yours in London. Are you ready?
Yep.
Hi, Eddie. This is your cousin Paul Stone in London. I hope you are keeping well. You and I have often talked about the warmth that we perceive comes from the old days of analog recording techniques and equipment as distinct from the digital environment that we have today. My question is, do you think that the advances in digital technology have enabled you to recreate some of the older vintage type soundscapes that you were creating in the old days of your time at Atlantic and Headley Grange here in the UK, and other studios such as the Record Plant, Electric Ladyland in New York? That's a good question.
Hello, cousin Paul. Thanks a lot for the question. I hope you're well. Say hi to the family. Fantastic. Okay. Yes, the answer is absolutely. And the reason why I say that is because with the advancement of technology, we've been able to convert the analog sound that's coming out of the studio from the mics into the mic pre's into console or whatever you're using, if you're even going straight into Pro Tools, you can then use something like a Burl mothership, which converts the analog signal into digital. And it is the closest thing I've ever found to the original tape. And all the Hendrix tapes that we play from when we're mixing, we transfer from tape through the Burl back into Pro Tools and keep working. And so always get interrupted by these bloody phones. I didn't kill that one.
I tell
So
you.
that's the deal. But the thing is, it's very possible today when you look at all the plugins that you can get that give you warmth. It's amazing, and you can get that analog sound. Yes.
We got them thick and thin here. So we have a question from Tom, who says, Eddie, thank you for all the wonderful music and hard work. How did you handle SPL levels when recording Cranked Marshall? Did the mic ever distort or speakers ever blow in the studio?
Very rarely. I mean, even Hendrix in full blast, I never really blew out any mics. Occasionally, the Beyer M160 mics, the ribbon mics that I used, would, because they're fragile, they would go. But in general, I mean, we could put, a U67, which I used to use a lot. I love tube mics on guitar amps as well as 57s and the Beyer. Now we use, of course, the Royers. No, I was thinking your question was going to be, are you deaf from that? I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. But it was a very interesting thing, whether it's Jimmy was Page or whether it was some crazy, Anthrax. I mean, there's a great metal band from the 80s. Full on blast. No, it never really bothered us because you just pad the mic down and hope it hadn't been trashed before by some drummer banging it with his stick,
I think one of the things that I always find interesting in this day and age is how I think sometimes it's really good for all of us to get a reminder that some of the most classic albums ever recorded, which you yourself recorded, mixed and produced, were done with very minimal amount of equipment and a lot of thinking outside the box and creative thinking that created a lot of the equipment that we have today. So, which brings me to one question, and I'm sorry I can't remember your name. There was a guy who asked a few minutes ago, do you suggest that people master just a few plugins when using plugins, or stash up a huge pile of them and try and use as many as possible?
Oof. Yeah, well, we have too many bloody choices, don't we, today? It's just like there's a plethora of plugins from every manufacturer under the sun. I sometimes think there are too many. If you master one set of plugins from one manufacturer and you try the other manufacturer and then you try the other and there's 20 of them and they all have their various sound qualities, I think you go for what is it that you like to record. Is it pop music? Is it R&B? Is it blues? Is it what is it? Whatever you're into, find the plugins that work for you, that sonically give you the result that you feel is translating the music that's been played in the room. That's how I would go. Otherwise, sometimes you just go, oh, there's so many plugins. I mean, then you end up putting too many damn plugins and one's canceling out the other and you've destroyed what could have been a really cool sound initially.
Yeah, you kind of dig yourself into a hole unless you're really careful, don't you? So, and then you have to pull everything off and start again. So there's something I heard in this session which you guys have been tweaking and messing with. Can we go to the vocals?
Oh, the vocal. The vocal section.
Let's go and take a listen to the vocals in this session because they are pretty damned amazing.
Yeah, and I wanted to do a little tweakage to one or two of them anyway.
You're allowed to. You're ready, Kramer.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So what I wanted to do is just isolate the vocals and particularly the effect. What I think the band was going for was this sort of Leslie effect, and I think something in the translation has gone a little bit wonky. It's a bit too edgy. I'd like to make it a little rounder and smoother and more Leslie. I think having a real Leslie is a plus, but not everybody has the space or the money to buy a Hammond B3 with its Leslies. So there are a lot of simulators, and some of these simulators, yeah, they're okay, but you got to be really careful about how you structure the EQ. So let's have a quick look. And we could actually go through the vocal. Yeah, we could go through the vocal bit by bit. I see, if I can read on my screen, here we go. Why don't we have a look at that? Mr. Wells. Hello, Greg. Yeah, hit me. There we go.
Every day just seems to feel like yesterday to me.
So, my lovely friend Jason, my engineer, the sound that I'm hearing is in the mid upper range of the voice, and it's on the return of the EQ, either in the reverb or in the actual Leslie itself. It seems a little bit edgy. If we can soften that, that would be brilliant.
Every day just seems to feel like yesterday
Yeah.
to me.
Particularly on the me, you can hear it that. Yeah, you can hear that grainy, edgy thing that's going on there, sort of like 4K up to about 8K, somewhere in there. Aha, bringing out the heavy guns here. Oh, he's going to roll off at the 4/7. See, this is why they give him the big.
See, the thing I love about a really good assistant.
Yeah,
the thing
he's
I love
right
about
there.
A good assistant
he's
is
listening.
Exactly. It's like a good assistant is working on what you want them to work on before you've actually asked for
Right.
it. So the thing I love about what I've been seeing with Jason and Eddie Kramer's relationship is Jason is totally tuned in with what Eddie is going to ask for next, and you might think this is baked. It's not. It's very cool to watch, though.
But I have to say this: in the days that I was growing up as an engineer from the early 60s, I was very lucky to have mentors who took the time and said, okay, this is, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, keep your mouth shut, and you'll learn. Because there were no bloody schools in those days. But watching those great engineers like Keith Grant and Bob Auger, all the guys I work with in England, they had a way of creating a sound, and you would look at it and you go, oh, that's what you did with the EQ. Okay, so you did 3K there and a little bit, and we didn't have much. It was not like you have a bloody great big 4-band EQ sitting in front of you. But that's the thing, is to learn in ahead of time, okay, he's going for that sound. I know exactly what he's looking for. And you have to think about that for the artist as well. You're creating a sound to make the artist happy. So let's hit play now. Let's see what we got.
Every day just seems to feel like yesterday to me.
Yeah. Yeah. You can hear when he goes to bypass, I would actually back that up just a tad more. Yeah, about another dB or so. And then put it into the track and let's see what we got.
Every day just seems.
Yep. Even more.
Every day just seems to feel like yesterday to me.
That's just about where I would have it. So put the track in and see what we got. Now we gotta push the vocal up in the track, obviously, because that's not as present as it was. So now we have to lift it, raise either the vocal bus. Yeah, that's much better.
So I have a question,
go
Eddie,
ahead.
from a guy called Kaya. I hope I got your name right. How do you decide what levels to keep the vocals, and what do you do so that the vocals don't get buried in the mix? I thought I'd bring that question up solely because you were just talking about raising the vocals after you'd tweaked the EQ.
Well, there's so many stories about the wars between the producer and the engineer and the artist. Hendrix was notorious for saying, "Man, turn my voice down, guy. I hate my voice." And he would fight Chaz Chandler, and then he would fight me at the end. When Chaz left the project, and it was just Jimmy and I. He hated the sound of his voice, and there are many artists who feel that way. Oh, bury it, man, bury it. Jagger feels like he wants to suck his voice back into the track as well for some God knows reason. But anyway, there's a very fine line where you can distinguish the lyric in the way it fits into the track, where it's just there. Now, that's the rock and roll method. But if you're a pop artist, you want that vocal way up front. You want it in your bloody face. Guys like Manny Mannequin and all my friends from Mix with the Masses, a lot of these guys do a lot of pop artists, and it's so interesting to hear the vocal relationship to the track in pop music versus the rock music. That's the battle. You have to really think about who the artist is, what the kind of music it is, to be able to determine where the vocal sits. It's always going to be a battle. The artists want it down, and some of them want it up. So you got to play that game.
I have a follow-on question from that. Leonard says, "Thank you so much for doing this first. These days, with all the fancy gear so cheaply available, I think the word you're looking for is affordable and great deals. Do you have any tips on how to not overdo a mix and know when it's ready to hand over to the client?"
Basically, you want to make sure that the mix that you're providing the client, presumably you've got a good relationship with the client, that they're going to give you room, because to make a mix that's maybe not perfect yet, there's a certain point in the mixing process. If, let's say, I'm taking 7 or 8 hours to do a mix or whatever it is, towards the end, when I'm almost ready, I want to make sure that the artist, if they're not in the room with me, which we can't do now, but towards the end of the day, just before I'm about to put the final touches to it, I want the artist to hear it and say, "Oh, that's great, but in the bridge, can you do blah, blah, blah?" And I'm saying yes, because I've already thought about that. And I know what I'm going to do in the bridge, but maybe I haven't quite done it yet. And it feels it's really important to engage the artist in the process so that it's not a surprise. "Oh, here's my mix and it sounds freaking great. I think it's terrific." And the artist says, "Come on, you got to be kidding me. Get out of here."
I think that's something that's been around since the first ever recording. Really, is remembering that yes, it might be an amazing mix, but is it what the client wants? And who is the
But
client?
is it what the song? But the other thing is it what the song demands? And sometimes you got to think in terms of, okay, we're doing this because we want the general public to buy the damn thing, and certain things have to be a bit in a different kind of perspective in order to make sure, like particularly in a pop song, you want to hear all those damn lyrics every breath you take, blah blah blah.
That's a good lyric. You should write that one down. We have a message here. Hi, this is Eddie from Brazil. He's a huge fan.
Yo, Eddie.
He would like to know more about Led Zeppelin's recordings. Did you play every song live, or did they come at one instrument at a time? So
No,
And
it's all Zeppelin was all live, mate. Occasionally, I think maybe Page and possibly John Paul Jones were playing acoustic. I'm thinking of Black Country Woman as an example. It's acoustic guitars and drums initially, and then a bass overdub. But 99.9% of the time, they're playing live, which gives them the great feel.
it's the magic, definitely. So, and we've got Ronit. Says when you're listening back to recordings you did with Hendrix or with Led Zeppelin and the albums you worked on, do you ever have any regrets on things that you would do differently now?
Nah, they are what they are, mistakes and all. And that's the thing I wanted to talk about was we left everything in that we could, even if it was weird. We left it in because why not? It just gave it character. I mean, you used Zeppelin as an example. So, there's so many instances on Led Zeppelin 2 where there was mistakes that we left in that just became part of the record. That part, woman, and you hear the other one, woman, you need, right? And you can hear the other vocal. Well, that was a mistake. Paige and I were mixing, this was 8-track in those days at A&R Studios in New York. We mixed the whole Zeppelin 2 record in 2 days. And we're sitting there mixing, and the console is round knobs, mate. Rotary pots, as they call them. None of these fancy slide faders, and primitive EQ, 2 pan pots, and maybe I think it was 10 channels, and it was an 8-track tape, so you can imagine what was going on. And it gets to that part in the middle where you hear this woman, and it's another vocal that's breaking through on track 8. And Paige looks at me, and I'm looking at him, and goes, and we literally, as the tape's playing, we both reach for the echo send knob for that bit to just drown it in reverb, and we're laughing our asses off because it's instinctual. We both want to do it at the same time, and we just left it in as part of the mix. Leave the damn mistakes in. Don't edit the shit out of it.
I think sometimes we, because we can in digital recordings, we try and make things too perfect, which I think, as you've just pointed out, can take the character out of it. It's one of the things I love about your work. Okay,
what, messy,
character filled. So. So we're still on the vocals. So we've got, I see Relay DT, I see some Kramers, we've got Greg Wells. We've got a lot going on there. It's like some people would only put one plugin on a vocal or a couple of plugins. There's a lot going on here. How do you come to that kind of chain? What's your thinking when you're talking with that lead, where you're going through and tweaking that lead vocal?
No thinking. It's just keep doing it until it feels right. There's a sound in your head, and you just go, "Oh, now I need a bit of this. Oh, no, I need a bit of that." You see, all right, there's a lovely idea. This ADT thing, which I think is freaking genius. Automatic double tracking is what it means, which is really half of phasing. You want to hear a funny story about phasing? Do we have time?
We have plenty of time.
So there's this band called the Beatles. You may have heard of them, right? So I'm in Olympic, and I get a phone call. Eddie, the Beatles are coming in to record. I was like, you do this big intake of breath, and it's like, holy. So anyway, they come in. Actually, I was very lucky. I got to record them twice. Once for All You Need Is Love, and the other one was for Baby a Rich Man. But on the All You Need Is Love session, we were fascinated with how did the Beatles get phasing. So we asked for George Martin. So George, how did you get that phasing sound on the Beatles tracks? And he said, well, chaps, if you look in the BBC Radiophonics handbook from 1949, you'll actually find it in there. Geez, thanks, George. So we knew the Beatles had done that in mono. So we said, we're going to beat them at it. We're going to do it in stereo. So that's what we did. And played it for Hendrix, and he lost his mind when he first heard it on Axis Boulder's Love. So that's where we got it from.
While we're still on that story, I think there's a lesson for all of your fans out there, which is you told me once when you were telling that story about the Beatles coming in that you were really more than rather nervous. You were.
I was shit scared, mate.
Exactly. So, and one of the things I love about that story is it gives you a great opportunity to remind people that being scared and pushing through it when you're trying to get to the next level in something like this kind of industry is a really good thing because it pushes you through that next level. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
All
anyway, ADT. So let's show. Yeah, let's play the track, the vocal track, particularly soloed up, and then we can have a look and see what all this crap is doing for us.
Every day just seems to feel like yesterday to me.
See, I would like to make that. Hold up, Jason. I would like to try to get that to be slower now. I'm thinking about it. You know, it should be more like that. And yeah, it's just slower and more sort of.
So one of the things that we should need to talk about is like what Jason's doing right now to get that is he's actually altering the rate down at the bottom of the plugin, and that's going to help.
And you can see the cash register going back and forth, right? Oh dear, sorry about that.
You're not.
No. All right, hit it, Jason. Go on in.
Every day just seems to feel like yesterday.
I like that better.
To me.
I'd like to use more of that effect. Bring it. I'd like to hear more of that in the balance, and maybe slightly less reverb. It's just slightly less reverb. All right, there you go. Hit us, baby.
Every day just seems to feel like yesterday to me.
Yeah, this is the thing. You can hold up, but you see what we're doing is it evolves into something else. You know, when you shorten the decay time, it becomes more roomy, and then you hear more of the effect. I mean, there's so many different ways you can reinterpret this sound. If you put that into the track, just see what it does for in those sections. Okay, so and there's so many things that are not being addressed at that particular point. There's that lovely guitar of down, 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 which is genius because it's right in sync with the bass. They're playing it in unison, which I think is fabulous. What's not being shown, and because this is just a rough, is that there will be the guitars will be lifted and then lowered and lifted and lowered. When I'm mixing in the analog world, obviously, which I'm not doing these days, it's a different thing. When my hands are on the faders, you can push them up and da-da-da, and the faders theoretically are automated, whether it's a Neve console or whatever. But now you can use an S6 or something like that to do automation. There's many, many ways you can do automation. I still like the tactile feel of the faders myself. But as I was saying, this particular example, this is just playing it rough. The dynamics are not being messed with here at all. Let's move on.
So I have another question for you. Actually, I have
another question.
I have thousands of questions. So Mark has a question.
Where's Mark from?
It doesn't say. It just says Mark. Which is like an echo. Whoa, it scrolled. Hold on. The panning on the Electric Ladyland session seems to continually swing between the left and the right channels. Is that because you were using a
pan pot?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They used to call me pan pots. or they were called potty.
That's
No, I
funny.
mean, look, this whole thing about panning is something I started at Olympic in '67 when I first met Hendrix, and it because the console, that beautiful Helios board or Dick Swetnam console, was laid out so beautifully. The pamper was right in front of me, and I just loved taking the instrument that was going to be panned and closing my eyes and just moving around, and I would do it as the music was affecting me. It was not a mechanical thing. This was, if you listen to any of the Hendrix stuff, it's all done within the time frame and it's done for an effect as I hear it in my head. Very messed up head, but there you go.
So, talking about the Helios, you worked with us on a plugin there. How do you? I mean, do you feel like that's a close reproduction? And it's like, do you still use that in sessions today?
All the bloody time, mate. That it's got one particular. All the frequencies are great, but there's one particular frequency. You'll see it right there, 2.8. That 2.8 is freaking magical. So, is that on a guitar? I can't see from here. Yes. Okay. So play the guitar, solo it, but put the HLS in bypass and then kick it in. I'll show you what it does. It's just, there's something about the way he designed those EQs. Good old Dick Swetnam. It's the magic button. Yeah, that's in bypass. Yeah, now there you go. Take it out. Bypass. Bypass. Yeah,
Sorry,
play it again.
It just froze up there for a second.
That's all right. That's very cool. But you can hear immediately, you know, what it was doing there, just that last little piece that you heard. Now it's in bypass. Now kick it in. Put it in. There it is. You hear how it jumps out the track? It's just freaking magical. Give it another boost of like another dB. Another dB more.
And just in that midsection right now, right?
Yeah, just in that section, yeah. All righty. Kick it in. There it is. It's just fabulous. All right. So it's that particular equalizer. It was actually, not only was an equalizer, it had a mic pre as well. And the sound of that, those two together, is just fabulous. And it also, one of the things that Dick Swetnam did in the design, it had a low headroom. It broke up pretty quickly. And we utilized the fact that it did get into crunch mode. And that's incorporated into the design, if you will, the capturing of that, making it a digital version.
How many of the Helios? It's like, I mean, it's obviously not something in that's in every studio. It's like, are there many?
They're rare. They're very rare.
Many left in working order at all?
Yes, there are a few. There's one out in Calgary. There's one in New York. There's probably about a half a dozen in the U.S. I don't know where the rest of them are.
So basically, less than 20, and we did a reproduction that you're happy with. And you see where I'm going here.
This is a particularly, here's the thing. This was his first console that he ever built before Helios. This was prior to Helios. It became Helios a year or so after this.
Hey, Jason, could you put it back on the screen, please, while we're talking about it? You're a good man.
Oh, cheers, mate. So this was the Silverface one that came from Olympic Studio 1. And that's the board I sat in front of right in the beginning in 1967, recording Hendrix and the Stones and Small Faces and you name it, right? And that console had a very unique sound. The subsequent ones after that had better headroom. They were slightly more sophisticated, but there was something about the crunch of that original bloody EQ and mic pre. It was never got quite like that. And so that's what that is.
Off the top of your head, can you list off a couple of things that you used the Helios for, that console that he did?
Oh, you mean in the day?
Yeah, in the day.
Oh, Jesus. I experienced Axis, all the Beatles stuff I did, Small Faces, just a lot of stuff.
You made my case. It's all good. So we have
classical music. I mean, it was everything with film. I mean, we used to record film music as well. We did music to picture with a lot of movies done. That board was very unique and very special.
So I have a Hendrix question here for you from
Never heard of him.
Isn't he? He's behind your left ear.
That guy, right?
Jonathan says, "Hi Eddie, would you elaborate a little about the process of recording the Jimi Hendrix Band of Gypsies? Was it done on 8 tracks, and what did you choose to do with the 8 tracks before you summed it down and did different things?"
With the 8 tracks, I brought them back to my house. I made spaghetti out of them. You know what I mean?
With ketchup?
No bloody ketchup, mate. No, you got to put the olive oil on the Parmesan cheese. All right. Yes, A Band of Gypsies was recorded at the Fillmore East. I did not record it, but I know who did, and they did a bloody marvelous job. It was 8 track. Well, what we did do after I got the tapes, Jimmy and I went up to a little studio uptown called Juggy Sound, and we mixed it together. And he particularly wanted certain. There were 4 performances, 2 each night. If you can imagine, this is Jimi Hendrix, right? The first performance on the 31st of the year of 1969. 2 shows, one at I think 7:30 or 8, and the next one was close to midnight, which was the midnight going into the new year, into 70. And 2 shows the next night. So he's Jimi Hendrix, but he's performing 2 bloody shows. It's incredible. And the performances, I think, are fabulous. And at the time, I wasn't quite sure what we were going to do with this. And he owed this record to Capitol. This was part of the lawsuit that he had to settle, whatever. So we're up at Juggy Sound, and we put the tapes up, and we're starting to mix, and it's on one of the tunes that Buddy Miles, God bless him, great drummer, but he's trying to take over the show, and he's riffing and he's screaming and yelling and he's going on, and we're at 14 minutes on the song so far, right? And I see Jimmy's sitting next to me, and his head gets lower and lower and lower. And now he's got his head in his hands and his hat's over his head. And I can just hear him saying, God damn it, buddy, I wish you would shut the F up. So I took that song, and they wanted it for a radio. And I took this like 15 minutes long, and I chopped it down to 3.5 just so they could get it on the radio.
How do you go about chopping that?
How do you chop that down? You get a razor blade, and you get your 1/4-inch tape, and you find the bits, and you mark them with a grease pencil, and you cut it, join it. There you go.
It's funny, isn't it? Word it's like when I was coming up in Australia in the studio world, it's not a grease pencil; it's a Chinograph pencil, and
it's a grease pencil, man.
Right. So I have another question here. Hi, Eddie. A lot of the drum sound, this is from Rich. Hi, Eddie. A lot of the drum sounds that I was hearing back in the 60s and 70s were a lot less live than Led Zeppelin's drums, which to my ears almost sounded like they were in an untreated living room. What led to that sound? Was it recorded that way, or did you add room tone to achieve it, or both? Thank you.
No, mate.
That's Bonham.
Yeah, I know, but see, today we've got all these lovely samples of ocean wave, big halls, small halls, whatever. This was all done there were really only 2 places that we did live recording like that. One was Stargroves, which is the stuff I did with the band for Houses of the Holy and Physical Graffiti. And Andy Johns, God bless him, rest in peace, brilliant engineer, by the way, started off as my assistant engineer and then became a wonderful engineer producer himself. He recorded a bunch of them too at a place called Headley Grange. Both of these were big English mansions. Stargroves, where I recorded, was Mick Jagger's house, which you couldn't even call it a bloody house, mate. It was a freaking huge mansion. But the idea was to put Bonzo's drums in a separate room that had great sound. And that's what we did every time. Headley Grange, although I didn't record it, I know exactly how they did it. It's in the front hallway and the mics were way above, 15, 20 feet above. And that's how we got the live sound. And it's become inherently part of Zeppelin's drum stuff.
So let's talk, we're talking about sound. So now what I want to do quickly before we forget is talk about your sound. Now, about 12 years ago now, I think, you and I toured lots of different places talking about your new plugin series, which is still very, very popular today, the Eddie Kramer signature series. Can we talk for a second about how those benefit people out there who are looking for that classic sound that you pretty much created, with the signature drums, guitars, vocals, etc. Can we chat about those and go through a couple of those?
Yeah. That was the very first time I'd actually ever done anything that's the HLF stuff. That's all. Those three go together. That and the Pi. That's from one period, but you're referring to the stuff prior to that, right?
I am, yeah. Jason, you can just bring them up as audio suites in this case, just so we can see them if you want.
Yeah, I don't know if he has them there. No, he does. I don't think he has them. He'll find them in a minute. But I think the concept was, all right, there you go. Thank you. So what was the bass sound? Was it based upon Hendrix, or was it Zeppelin, or what was it? So I had to figure out how to get a sound that I would normally use in a mixing mode or as a plug-in mode. And it's all of the stuff that it's very much English, Anglo-centric, and it's because that's what I knew, right? It was Olympic, and then when I came to the States, it's the record plant. So it's got some of the ideas that came from the Helios or Sweatenham console at Olympic, and the record plant, which was a data mix console, which very Americanized, little mini graphic equalizers. There was that, and then the compression that I was using in America was different to the ones I was using in England. More of the Fairchild type, LA2As and stuff like that, which I got introduced to in America. So all of these sounds are in my head when we start putting this stuff together, and this is what we came up. You got, for instance, on the guitar, there's a flange mix, there's compression, there's the mids and the highs, and you can mix the verb in and out. I haven't used these in a while, so it's kind of fun to see them.
Jason,
and people still use them today? I don't know.
Absolutely they do. Jason, whatever you do not press play with all these plugins on the kickback. So
might be very cool. I don't know.
So one of the things that I love about what we created with you for this series was that it's a bit like having you talking over and listening over somebody's shoulder while they're mixing at home, because these are pretty much sounds in a plugin that you would go to. So say, for example, and you've actually taken it a bit further, whereas with certain effects, like say, for example, if you look at the guitar plugin, this specific setting, which is Rhythm 1, you've taken out the depth and the flange completely, right. Whereas on the lead, I think if you press lead, I think that's the one that's actually got the depth and the flange.
Right.
These plugins are really cool, folks. It's like these are not plugins just for beginners. These are amazing sounding plugins. And one of the things that I would tell you to do is most definitely trial and demo this bundle The drum plugin, I use the drum plugin a lot in my mixes. So, Kramer, can you talk to us for a second about the look and feel of these? Because obviously one of the things with signature plugins is the design is specifically what you want for the plugin. So tell us about this blue and silver, very flashy, lush feel.
It's me, mate. Oh no, flashy and lush. No, I'm just kidding. I've always liked blue, and I like all the filigree stuff that they come. I have to say that the Waves guys, when they designed this thing, when I looked at it, wow, this was so cool. I had no idea it was going to come up this. And I love at the top on the bass, there's the grill on the right-hand side. I always think there's going to be a monster coming out of there, which it was. I mean, it was going to be a lovely bass monster.
Right.
But the division between the silver and the blue, I love those colors.
Yeah. These are great plugins. So again, people, please don't look at these as
they're not toys, mate.
These are not toys. These are amazing plugins. Okay, next question. Rune says, "Hey Eddie, greetings from Denmark. He wants to know what speakers you like mixing on, or
very easy. Speaker number one of choice, ATCs, the 25s, the 45s, 50s, and up to the big ones, 200s, 300s. I love them. Everything I've mixed on my ATCs, brilliant. Very even, translates everywhere. Can't go wrong. I mean, I know they're expensive, but it's worth it. That's my speaker of choice. Oh, NS10s you got to have. But I have to say, though, a nice vintage pair of NS10s would be cool. If you can't find the original speakers, I think there's replacement ones which are pretty good. And my engineer partner in crime in California over at Capitol, Chandler Harrod, when we're mixing Hendrix, he's got a pair of NS10s with a sub. And man, that thing is dialed in just beautifully. So it translates really well for the stereo world.
So we got a message here a question from Fred, who wants to know if you could share anything of your signal chain for the Aces guitar when you recorded alive.
Whoa, recording alive, Yishka. That's a ways back. Okay, the truck that we recorded, that one is no longer on this planet, I don't think. That was called the Fedco truck. It was in an aluminum bread delivery van, I swear to God, with a little console and two 16-track machines. I think they were Stevens machines. Anyway, the chain for the recording live, you're referring to Kiss Alive, I presume. God knows, mate. It's so long ago. Pretty straight ahead. I think most of the work was done after the fact at Electric Lady Studios, where there was a lot of work that we did after the fact. But generally speaking, Ace's tone was pretty damn solid. He's a great guitar player. Hi, Ace. I hope you're well and living in California.
Carly, how you doing, buddy?
All right.
So I have a question here from Bob Ross on the note of mistakes. I'm not sure what he's referring to. Maybe it's us. One of his favorite guitar intros is on the song Houses of Holy. But to his ears, it sounds out of phase. Is that correct?
Probably.
And if so, he said he thinks it was a risk that maybe paid off big time with the tone. Can you remember anything about that mix?
Mate, if I knew my middle name, I'd be very happy. You're talking about 150,000 years ago. I don't even remember what I had for breakfast. Let's take a guess. You know what? The easiest thing is when I hear it, I can tell you more or less what it was. I can tell you a couple of things that it could have been. We put Mr. Page's amplifier inside a fireplace. Not with the fire going, of course. And then we dropped a mic down and mic'd it that way. So that could account for the kind of wackiness. Anything that's wacky, if it sounds cool, we're going to use it. Listen, Zeppelin stuff that I've done, there's so many mistakes and things that here today and I cringe, the crunge, haha. But Moby Dick is an edit. There's an edit between two studios. Goes from one studio to another, completely different. Come on, it's all over the place. Don't worry about it. Does it sound good? If it sounds good, have a cup of tea.
What was the first record that you, talking about remembering things, can you remember the first record that you mixed that you thought, this is going to take me places? This is going to push me forward and move my career?
Didn't think about moving anything, right? Just staying on top of the job, not getting fired. No, we never thought about stuff like that. It was just get on with the bloody job, do the best job you can. It was no, the only time I think it really occurred to me that career was going to happen and take off and go in a different direction was when I got asked to come to America. That was when I thought, oh, this is going to be a good move. But up to that point, I wasn't thinking, oh, if I do this and I do that, no, it just happened. Serendipity. I got invited to come to the US to work at the record plant to continue my work with Hendrix, which is why I came there.
I get to use my joke now. You got an OBE.
Yes.
You got ordered out of the British Empire.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No. Mine's different, mate. It's Eddie Kramer, OBE. One beer, Eddie. One beer and I'm yours.
You're already mine, Eddie.
Oh, darling, I didn't know you cared.
So if you had to give people who want to achieve the kind of repute and respect that you've achieved over your career, if you had to give people who were starting out and building their careers now one piece of advice that you think is more important for them than anything else, what do you think it would be?
As an engineer?
Yeah. Or a human being, even.
Dear, oh dears. As an engineer, okay, I could give advice to engineers. Give it up now, mate. There's so many schools and so many people trying to get into the business. But if you are lucky enough to really, really want it, you've got to really want it and you've got to stay with it. And don't be afraid to sit in a corner and cut Pro Tools all bloody day to get yourself up to par. Because you've got to be quick. You've got to be dedicated. You've got to be devoted. You've got to be just so tough to be in this bloody business. And you really have to have the passion for it. And a musical knowledge. I think if you understand music and you can play an instrument, don't have to play it well, you're in. But stay the course. It's a tough business, but I tell you what, when you finally get in the studio and you have a band that you really, really, really like, and you hear them play all together, all staring at each other, and they get that take, you go, yes, this is why I started in the record business, because the hair on the back of your head stands straight up and you go, bloody hell, that was genius. I want to hear that again.
So follow your heart and be stubborn and stick at it and don't give up, basically. So, Eddie, this has been a ton of fun, and I'm sure pretty much everybody out there in Viewerland agrees with me on that one. So, any big projects that coming up you can tell us about that's coming up? Anything for you? Anything might be on the TV or anything happening that you can tease?
Yeah, I've been very, very, very fortunate. I've got a very wonderful partner, my lovely wife, AJ Newton, and she and I are working on this movie together. It's called From the Other Side of the Glass, and my big partner in California, hi phone. So hey,
I told you to turn it off.
I couldn't even figure out how to do that. I don't even know how to turn off the bloody the light switch. My partner in California, a guy named the very famous Spencer Proffer. He's great. He's a lovely bloke, and he's our partner, and he's put this thing together with Penske Media. and we're going to be starting it, I think, early next year. And it's about my life and times and the political things that were going on when I was recording Hendrix and the Stones, and all the way up to today, by the way. So
That's
you might
exciting.
be included in there. Yes.
That's exciting. Well, you and I have had some adventures, so that's exciting.
We certainly did.
That's exciting. So we do need to. I just need to work out how to do this now. Jason, can you please turn on your camera?
Yes.
Don't be scared.
Come on,
Join the
Jason.
party.
All
Hey,
right.
here's my buddy.
There we go. So now
Yeah.
this is there we go. It's tiny, people, but I just wanted you to see Jason. Wave Jason at the world. Thank you, Jason. Okay, Eddie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being such an amazing human being. Ladies and gentlemen out in the world, this has been a Waves Open session. I will be back next week with someone else to educate and entertain you. I hope you will join me. We at Waves send much love to you and your family. And Eddie, any closing comments?
Thank you all at Waves so much. Love you all. Michael Pearson Adams, you're a gentleman and a genius. Don't let them kid you about that. And thanks, Jason. Peace, love to everybody. Keep rocking.
Take care, everybody.
With music.
Out of here. See you next week.
All right.